When I was very sick from COVID, I didn't really have much that I could do. I couldn't work on videos or do any schoolwork, so my best option really is to replay a Mario RPG. I remember people really wanted a partner ranking for Paper Mario: The Origami King, so replaying that game was a great option. Hey, I've only played that game twice before, so getting another playthrough would definitely be good to get an updated opinion. After finishing it again, I don't want to do a partner ranking at this point in time. My opinions of the worlds in this game have changed so radically that I have to remake my world ranking. Worlds got better, some got worse, and overall, that video has become outdated. So let's get into the rules. There are 6 worlds in this game. To make it 7, I'm going to include the prologue. The prologue, for reference, is everything before you enter Picnic Road. And of course, this is my opinion. I didn't even expect some of these spots to change like they did, but this is truly how I feel at this point. So if you have a different list, which I'm sure you will, leave it in the comments. It's fun to see them. Anyways, let's get started. But before we get started, make sure to leave a like on the video and make sure to subscribe. I'd appreciate that, but other than that, let's actually get started. Was this expected? Probably, but the prologue is definitely not a bad world to go through. I actually don't hate any of these worlds. Every single one is fun to go through, and nothing makes me want to rage quit when playing them. When dealing with the prologue here, it's the first part of the game. Nothing interesting is going to happen. Peach's castle is a nothing place to me. You can mention anything. Peach's dialogue, the enemies getting turned into origami, Bowser's dialogue. None of it is interesting to me anymore because I've seen it already. At least the cutscene where Mario, Olivia, and Bowser have to escape the castle was pretty good. All the ribbons are trying to surround the castle and you have to not get hit by them. It's really intense, and the camera angles that the cutscene shows are really cool. Whispering Woods, again, it's just a nothing area to me. I did at least like some things in this place, like some of the basic puzzles, but everything else was just so boring. The song with the trees, random. The Toad Town outside of the woods, generic and uninteresting. The battles, oh my god, the battles. The battles in this place are annoying because they have tutorials all throughout Whispering Woods. Why did they do this? The mechanics of the battlefield are very difficult and complex without knowledge. I know that. But they could have taught most things in the first battle at Peach's castle, and the job would have been done. Toad Town at the very least is interesting and easily the best part of the prologue. We get introduced to the macho enemies, which is cool since they are always a fun time to fight. The music is really depressing and honestly better than the normal Toad Town music, which is a little sad to think about, but it helps for this section of the game. The best part about Toad Town though is just exploring it. There are a lot of houses, random pipes, and a ton of secrets that makes this place a really fun time. The sewers as well were decent. Even though they were short, they were a simple place to explore that looked kind of nice. Now, this is the prologue. The tutorials and the basicness is plastered on every wall, or every tree in this case. But Toad Town and the sewers made this part of the game more than just tutorial lands. Even though it is number 7, I do enjoy this place way more than expected. Just like the Thousand-Year Door, because of all the tutorials being in the prologue, World 1 becomes much better. I love finding the Koopa Stones. You have to get 4, and all of them are different in how you get them. One you get from an auction, one you get from fishing, one you get from the machos, and one you get from using the 1,000-fold arms. It somewhat forces you to explore Overlook Mountain, which I think is a huge positive. Even though it isn't a big expansive area like the Scorching Desert, it is still fun to explore and get secrets. I also thought Overlook Tower was very fun as a first final area. The place is covered in color pencil drawings, but it's also very destroyed. They also restrict how much confetti you have in your bag, so you have to get them from saving toads. Once you get to the roof, it's also a very interesting time. The color pencils are trying to shoot missiles at you, and you have to dodge them and climb up to the very top. The color pencils fight is also good for a first fight. It is my least favorite main boss from this game, but even then I think it's solid. It's a good introduction to what Origami King is. But this place isn't perfect. Far from it. The Earth Elemental Temple, it's not great. It's easily the least memorable temple out of the 4. The Earth Elemental as well was just a very annoying boss. I actually like the concept of hitting its legs and tail, but the tutorials ruined the fight completely. Was it needed? Yes. This is the first time that the battle system changed from Mario being in the center to going on the outskirts. And just like the battle system normally, it's pretty complicated. I wouldn't mind if the tutorials were shorter, but the tutorials are literally almost the entire fight. That's not even the worst part of World 1 though. Easily the worst part is Picnic Road. This place is the most boring area in all of Origami King. What do you do here, you may be wondering? Well, you go to the temple to see the Koopa shells are missing, and then you go to Overlook Mountain. That's it. This place is nothing. I said when talking about the prologue that Peach's Castle and Whispering Woods are nothing. That's more when relating to my opinion with them. But Picnic Road literally does nothing. If you aren't collecting toads, it is boring. When you're 100%ing the area, it feels so painfully long. Adding with all the basicness of World 1, it makes sense that this place is number 6. This is a very unpopular opinion. Now, just like most people, I thought this world was really fun. I love almost everything about this part of the game. Something that this world specializes in is the graphics. Autumn Mountain and the Water Elemental Cave are some of the most beautiful places in the entire game, with really colorful and detailed graphics that look amazing. The music as well is really good in this world. Autumn Mountain and Shogun Studios are really iconic music pieces that most people remember for good reason. The Water Elemental Temple is my second favorite temple in the game. The slide puzzles and the layout are really good. This includes the Water Elemental itself. The boss is also my second favorite mini boss in this game, with its very good concept of the water spouts. Shogun Studios feels like it explains itself for how good it is. Exploring each house and going through the trading quest is a good experience. It wasn't as good as I remembered, but it still was fun to go through. Now, something I found very strange is what I found to be the highlight of this world. This happened to be the play for when you enter the really tall building. I thought it was very immersive and very creative, but not only that, it was just super charming. Obviously, it was you fighting macho enemies, which is something you've done multiple times, but in this case, it feels like, well, an act. It feels way less intense and way more fun for Mario to experience. Now, this being my favorite moment from this world isn't really that abnormal. I'd say maybe at least a fourth of people's favorite part of it is this play. The strange thing is that I used to have this listed as something super forgettable and overrated. While everything in World 2 went down quality-wise a little bit, the play was able to take that crown favorite spot. But speaking of quality going down, let's talk about why this is number 5. I'll start with the complaints that are more tame and progress to the ones that killed this world. I'll first start with the rapids. While the song was somewhat peaceful at the beginning, I thought the boat ride was annoying. It felt very long and the boat got very hard to control when the obstacles got plastered all over the place. I also didn't care for Chestnut Valley. You're only forced to go here because Bobby fell down the bridge. The place was just kind of dull. This next one is going to hurt some fans of this game. I don't like Bobby in this world. All he does is lose you progress and he isn't an interesting or fleshed out character at this point. This is the most prominent during the previously mentioned Chestnut Valley, where he falls off the bridge. He gets so much better in World 3, but because he doesn't have his memory yet, he just makes the place take longer for no reason. And finally, Autumn Mountain is just as bad as Picnic Road. Yes, the place is beautiful, and yes, this place has great music. But other than those things, please tell me what you do at this place. Just like Picnic Road, you take a quick detour to different places and then leave. The place is the definition of style over substance, and it makes the beginning of the world very dull. And overall, everything before the Water Elemental Temple is just very mediocre. I still like this world a lot. The temple, Shogun Studios, and most importantly the play were really enjoyable, making it deserve number 5. After seeing how good or bad the last world of a game can be when I talked about both Super Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, it's interesting to see that I see this world as middle of the road. I'll start with the positives. Some people may count this with World 5, but I love the airship battle against the paper airplanes. The music is pretty strong and the controls work very well. I also love Hotfoot Crater. It's my highlight of World 6 still, since the music is really intense and you have to quote-unquote sacrifice Kamek and Bowser Jr. There are a ton of Macho Goombas chasing you and they hold them down so you can get to Bowser. I also love the cutscene where Peach's castle changes into Origami Castle. It's the same reason as why I love the cutscene where Mario and Bowser escape the castle at the beginning of the game. It has a ton of angles and the castle itself just looks awesome. When going into the castle, I love the overall feeling that you get when going through it. It feels very high stakes because of the music and also because of the fortune tellers. They are used as a way to damage Mario if he falls and they look surprisingly intimidating. Lastly, the bosses themselves are good in this place. The stapler fight is solid and the King Ali fight, well, I don't have enough time to talk about King Ali in this segment. Just know he is fine. I'll talk about him in a later video. Now, the negatives, or negative in this case. Yes, I only have one con for this world, but it is bigger than any con I've talked about so far. The actual castle itself is the least memorable place in Origami King. Do I know why this is for me? No, but I have a guess. One thing that needs to be brought up about this world is that it is the shortest world in the game by a decent margin. If it was shorter than the prologue, I'd be surprised, but would understand how. This place doesn't slow down at all. There aren't any moments that stick out during the journey of the castle. It's just the end when the stapler fight begins. Think about what people remember from this place. The stapler fight, Bowser and Olivia's talk, the final boss, Ollie dying in the 1000 crane wish. All these things happen at the end of the world. No one remembers the journey because the game doesn't do anything interesting during it. I much prefer the system that Castle Black did in Super Paper Mario, where there is a boss in the middle of the castle and each part has something interesting. Not where everything is bombarded at the end like the Thousand Year Door and now Origami King. Now, I don't hate this place. This is the only bad part about it, and while the pros aren't as strong as World 2, they do outweigh the cons enough. Not a lot, which is why it's number 4, but enough that I enjoy going through it. While it wasn't the ending I completely wanted, I can't deny that going through this castle was a fun time. This change in the list makes me the most sad. For people who don't know, World 5 was originally my favorite world, and I still like this world. It is number 3 after all, but something changed. I'll start with the positives, and then the negatives, and most importantly, I'll talk about what happened. The main concept of this world is that Bowser Jr. gets cut up by scissors. Because of this, we have to go to different hot tubs that Shangri Spa has and replenish him back to normal. This is definitely an interesting concept that felt more unique compared to other worlds. And yes, I mentioned Bowser Jr. He and all of Bowser's enemies crash landed on Shangri Spa with Bowser's castle, so they have to work off all the damage and the debt they got. Kamek was the one who caused it by accident. Speaking of Kamek though, I actually really enjoyed Kamek's character in this world. He is very intelligent, but we can tell he is never looked at for good ideas. He is genuinely surprised when we listen to him in places like the jungle. The jungle was also interesting to a point. I think the place was very threatening with the Macho Chain Chomp, and the platforming and chases were fun to go through. The music of this chapter is also very strong. The scissors fight, Bowser's castle, the enemy versus Origami war, all very enjoyable songs to listen to. And lastly, for the positives, the good bosses in this chapter are pretty good. I liked fighting the Macho enemies before this, so Paper Macho Buzzy Beetle was fun. And then we have Scissors. Scissors is still my favorite boss from this game, and he aged beautifully. Just check out my chapter boss ranking I did for this game. That one is pretty close to my real opinion. Now, these positives looking back are, well, maybe aside from Scissors and maybe the music, aren't really that strong. The negatives get applied to the same logic. I thought that the Sumer Bros and the Hanaconda were very boring boss fights that didn't need to be there. I know there isn't a Velimental temple in this world, but they should have made a better mini-boss than the Sumo Bros. I also think Shy Guy's Finish Last was okay, but Sniff It or Whiff It is so much better. It's like one of the only things that I genuinely like Sticker Star for. And that's it! Only 2 negatives. And like I said before, these negatives aren't really that bad. Shy Guy's Finish Last was just something that I wish was something else, and the mini-bosses, while a little disappointing, were very short. Now what made me bring this down to number 3? What was the true reason? If we look at my original list, most of what I said here is the exact same as before, except one thing, and that is the war between Bowser's enemies and the Origami. When I talked about that for my original list, I remember being so immersed into saving every single enemy and really enjoying the intense feeling. This time, it's completely gone. All of it. I don't think the music is as intense as it once was, the enemy fights were too long, the action wasn't really that intense, nothing worked on me anymore. This is really bad for World 5's chances on this list. That, in my opinion, was the main appeal of this world for me before. It was my favorite moment in the entire game. When the immersion of an epic moment goes away completely, it's a very disappointing time, and that's what happened for me for this world. Why is it still number 3 though? Even though the positives and negatives aren't that strong, and I have this super disappointing feeling in my thoughts now, how did it still get a podium spot? It's a simple answer. Those negatives are so weak that they don't even budge me anymore. And while the positives are weak, they are enough that I still do enjoy casually going through this world. Now that this world is sunk, we now have the 2 worlds in Origami King that I really love. So let's get into that, shall we? Now, while World 1 was kinda basic and World 2 was somewhat disappointing, World 3 I thought would continue the trend. And I'm so happy to say I was very incorrect. World 3 was always a world that was barely off my coveted worlds, so when those worlds aged worse, this one stayed just as good in quality and it moved up the list. World 3 has so many positives that I have to start with the negatives, and unlike World 5, they are actually pretty important. We first gotta talk about the puzzle orbs. You have to find 4 orbs in the desert and put them in each of the Toad Towers. Now on your first playthrough, these will be very fun to find. The game only gives you faint riddles which do make sense after you find where each one is. The problem is that I memorized where they are. It makes the part after the Fire Volumental Temple to the Temple of Shrooms very quick and meaningless to me. Now is this the problem with the world objectively? No, this is just a problem after playing the game more than once or twice. This next problem though is definitely worse than the orbs. The Temple of Shrooms is easily the worst final area in this game. This is painful to say because I know most people disagree, but this place never did it for me. Now the toads were creepy the first time, and some of the puzzles were good, but everything else is so unmemorable. Finding the music disc was kind of interesting, but I know which one I need. I thought finding all the toads with the radio, while an interesting concept, got annoying to me. And it's because of the music being okay if it loops once, but you need to find 40 toads, which is a lot. So it is constantly playing and it's just not my type of song. The music aside from that is also forgettable to me. These negatives I listed, that is the entire end of this world. From the Fire Volumental to Hole Punch, I think that section of the game is at best kinda dull, to at worst somewhat annoying. It's at number 2 and we got this bad of negatives? The positives have to compensate, don't they? Indeed they do! How much time do we have? An infinite? Okay, let's go through them then. I'll start with the beginning of World 3. We see that Bobby gets his memory back, which isn't that big of a deal to us at this point, since nothing really changes yet. I also didn't care at this point because like I said when talking about World 2, I thought Bobby was annoying. After Olivia gets crushed with the huge boulder, Bobby gets this look in his eye and he knows what he has to do. It's a cool moment, and this was the moment right here that was a turning point for his character. We head to the Princess Peach in the ocean where the place is completely destroyed. Not only is Bobby surprised by this, but the game tries so hard to make the player surprised by this. Now again, this isn't my first playthrough, so it didn't completely work, but the music, the lighting, the messed up furniture, and the toads! Some of them are really paranoid and some are flat out dead. Or fainted. Not sure, but it doesn't matter. Not only is this place a good time to explore, it gets more intense after the blooper gets foreshadowed. After he steals Bobby's precious item, we do the first ever Macho boss. This isn't my favorite one in the game, but it is very fun and I'm glad they did things like this to change it up. Now this special item was his best friend's fuse, and he exploded himself to save Olivia. I will admit, I almost cried at this cutscene. It wasn't because of Bobby exploding, even though the cutscene portrays it perfectly in how it should be. It was knowing how Olivia was going to react. Olivia goes into this cave where Monty moles live and she is just crying. I do wish we could use the Goomba mask right away, but we get to see Bobby's soul talk to us and it's a good moment on a first playthrough. After we cheer Olivia up, we get to the end of this cave and we get to use one of my favorite things in this world. Something that you guys have probably found out in my other rankings is that I like going fast. Look at my favorite things from other games. Yoshi from the Thousand Year Door, Carrie and Dashel from Super Paper Mario. I love going fast. In this world, we get access to the boot car. The boot car is very easy to control and it is fun to go across the huge desert with. And boy, this desert is huge. The desert has the sun not in the sky, which means the place is all dark and purple. I love how it looks and the music of the desert makes it very mysterious. I actually prefer this look compared to when the sun gets back in. After exploring the desert, we get to the best thing about this chapter, this being Sniff City. I absolutely adore Sniff City for its atmosphere, its music, and its overall feeling the place gives off. It's a cool town that prides itself on its lights and its huge hotel, which, might I add, the music of the hotel is great to listen to. Sniff City is my favorite place in the entirety of Origami King. And the last major positive I have for this world is that Paper Macho Pokey was a great fight. It was a massive creature that had obvious weak points that were not easy to hit, and you get to use the boot car. Okay, this segment has gone on for long enough. Oh wait, you want me to talk about the fire elemental? Nah, I'm good. It was fine, nothing notable. The boss didn't bother me or blow me away, so I didn't and still don't care. To sum all of this up, while there are absolutely negative parts about this place that do sink it, the positives aged beautifully on my latest playthrough that make it absolutely deserve number 2. Here we are, my favorite world in Origami King, and I really don't have negatives for this place. It's surprising, I know, but this world pulls off everything it needs to do greatly. I will admit that there is a chance that later playthroughs of this game could possibly make this place age worse, but for now I don't see the issue, especially compared to worlds that did age badly like World 2 and World 5. But the actual world itself, it's all on the ocean. I like the ocean in most games when you can do things like finding treasure or discovering new islands. Origami King does this well. Not amazingly, which is why I'm worried about it aging badly, but well enough that exploring the entire ocean is fun to do. There are 11 islands and a bunch of buried treasure all over the place. The islands all have concepts and a purpose of being there. For example, you have Heart Island, where there is a ton of buttons all over the place and they do different things to the island. There is also Mushroom Island, which is the origami craftsman's house. And speaking of the craftsman, I'm glad he was introduced here. It's interesting to get some backstory on both Ollie and Olivia, which is something that has been severely lacking in the story so far. It's also a good place for him to be since this place doesn't really have much of a story. Diamond Island doesn't have a story, and the Sea Tower really just has tape. Finding treasure was also fun because it wasn't mandatory, and sometimes you just have to go down in the ocean and get lucky. Toads from islands also give where some treasures are, which is very helpful and much appreciated. Now, something that people would be hesitant on is the boat itself that you travel in. People would be annoyed at how slow it is in an ocean traveling game. That's a fair point to mention because having that break in between each action can lead to a boring experience. Luckily, Origami King takes care of this. How? Well, the boat already moves somewhat fast to begin with, but if that doesn't satisfy you, you can upgrade the boat's speed and it goes lightning fast. Makes it harder to control for sure, but you go so fast that the complaint of slow travel is completely disappeared. Diamond Island and the Ice Elemental Temple is an interesting topic. I love both of them. The Ice Elemental Temple is the best temple out of the 4 by a decent amount because of its puzzles and its great music and look. The boss of the place as well is very fun. The Ice Elemental was my favorite mini boss from a while back, and it definitely still is now. Diamond Island has the tests, which are all fun to do. My favorite was the Wisdom test out of the 3, but every single one has an interesting experience. Now, the Sea Tower being the last area really impressed me. It was somewhat of a wrap-up to the Velumental temples as a whole. This is because of its look, taking from every single temple and putting it in a room, somewhat testing your abilities and what you've learned in this game. The music in this place is great and memorable. And to end it off, Tape was a good boss. It did get worse in my eyes, but not enough where I didn't enjoy the fight fully through. Overall, with all these positives with the world outweighing literally no negatives, it definitely is my favorite world in Paper Mario: The Origami King. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe since you lasted this long. I also have a podcast called The Flatmates, which will be on the screen and in the description below, but other than that, G-bye.